And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Tiger Driver Radio for all things New Japan Pro Wrestling and the best of the indies. This is your main man, JP, alongside
Juicy J.
See, there you go. That's how you do an intro, man.
That's how you do it?
Yeah, because
Like that one?
you've kind of been botching it for about 2 months now.
Yeah, I've been practicing a little bit.
You know, oh man. So how's everything been, man?
Good.
Good.
Just getting colder here in Texas.
It's getting colder. No, you know what? Texas winter is weird because Texas winter is kind of like in the morning, it'll be like 40,
Yeah.
45 degrees. And then in the middle of the day, it'll be 95. And then you just get hypothermia and your body doesn't know how to react and everyone gets sick and nobody covers their mouth and nobody washes their hands.
Yeah.
And it's just months and months of like hot and cold and everyone just being disgusting. It's the worst. I much rather deal with a real winter with like snow and everything versus the hot and cold. It annoys me. It messes with my body, dude, and my sinuses.
Yeah, you know, but you're from New York.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I prefer like a harsh winter
Yeah.
or a harsh summer, no like back and forth in one single day. That's terrible. Global warming's a thing, man. I don't care what anyone says.
Talk to Al Gore about it.
Oh God. But yeah, man. But no, like the past week has been so interesting, man, in terms of the world of wrestling. A lot of ups and downs. And I actually had like a pretty interesting conversation with a buddy of mine. And you and I have touched base on this, and maybe we'll talk about this a little later because we have a very special episode today. But do you think that things are becoming overexposed?
Oversaturated?
Yeah, saturated is the better word, actually.
Yeah.
Saturated. Do you think?
I think it just comes down to nowadays it's coming down to just choose the product you like and you just stick with that. You can't you don't have time to watch everything.
Yeah, I don't understand how. I mean, then again,
it's not oversaturated. It's just I think it's just so much to pick from that you just have to be loyal to one thing.
Loyal to one thing or a couple of things, but it's just like, I mean, unlike, you know, we have day jobs, so like this isn't our job where we get paid a lot of money and sponsorship. Maybe one day, who knows?
Yeah.
But I mean, like, it's just, I don't see how anyone can keep up with so many options. And the thing is, it's all really, really good stuff.
Yeah.
But a friend of mine's like, I don't know, man. I think it's just kind of overwhelming right now. And I'm like, well,
I mean, I love it. I mean, I try to watch as much as possible and then go to indie shows too. So.
Absolutely. So, you know, and speaking of indie shows, for those of us that have been listening to us for a while, we're coming up on a year. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. We had a guest early on in this show, in the early days of this show, by the name of Alex Arsenal, an up-and-coming independent wrestler out of San Antonio, Texas. Bright future, awesome dude. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to welcome him back. And I present to you Alex Arsenal.
I've never heard of him. Never heard of the guy.
Never heard of the guy?
I don't know, Alex.
Yeah. So what was that? April, 6 months ago. It feels like a lifetime. I'm a whole new. I got a whole lot more in the arsenal now. So I'm a whole new man. I believe I was the in-ring assassin, Alex Arsenal, back then. Well,
yes.
Now that is the old me. The alliteration was great, but not great enough. So I am now bulletproof Alex Arsenal. Which I feel like is an upgrade.
I dig that.
Assassinating people is a great side gig, but being bulletproof is a lot more economically viable because, you know, I can't die. So that's kind of an upgrade. But other than a change in moniker, I have changed a whole lot else, and a whole lot else has changed me. So again, I don't even know where to start over the last 6 months. I believe when we started last time, my most exciting thing was a new T-shirt. Yeah. So I had new merch. So
you have it in black now.
Yeah, I do. Oh, I've got it in black. I've got it in white. I've got. That makes 3 colors, fellas. So
wow,
there's a whole collection now you got to have. I don't know what's next, but we're definitely going to come up with, I don't know, hats, trading cards, holographic stuff, lunchbox, cardboard cutouts, whatever.
If you have an Alex Arsenal cardboard cutout, I promise you it will be right here in the studio.
You'll get the first one, I promise.
Yes.
Sure. Funny enough, the point I was making was there's a lot more than just merch now that's going on that's really exciting. So again, if I had to summarize the last 6 months, just opportunities. And now as a result of those opportunities, busy, which is the goal.
So, you look a lot more leaner when we saw it. Saw you the other day.
Thank you for telling the people that, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no. Turns out it's a lot easier on your joints to be a pro wrestler, and especially somewhat of a quote unquote high flyer such as myself.
Yeah.
When you're a little bit lighter, a little bit leaner.
Yeah. Because last time you were lean, but you just more so now.
Yeah, no, it's a big, long process. We a lot of times in wrestling, people say we run in the same circles as bodybuilders, right? The biggest difference there, the aesthetics is just a little bit more higher percentage of what they do for sure. And also they got to get ready for one big show, and then maybe it's a few months or a whole year till the next season.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of have forever, right? Like there's never any day off or time off necessarily. So it's a big, slow process. So I try not to fluctuate. It's just one big, slow. Hopefully 6 months from now, I'll look even better, but I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I mean, you do personal training too, which we didn't even talk about last time. Yeah. I don't know if you still do that right now.
Yes, I do. It's a pretty incrable overlap.
Yeah, I'm definitely have to talk to you about this once the show is over about personal training.
It's funny you say that, because literally just these last few days, last few weeks, maybe a little bit last few months, I have engaged heavily in the barter system. So
really,
I don't even know if I need money anymore, because at this point, the amount of services that are done for me, or as a result of me then providing people with nutrition plans or personal training tips or actual personal training, it's pretty incredible. And again, I just bring that up to just point out how fascinating it is, the overlap between this and, I mean, it's applicable to everyone, but especially in wrestling, all the wrestlers. Pretty big name guy on Sunday was talking to me about his meal plan, and I don't know if he would want me to share who he was or not. But I was like, "Holy, I got this guy knows 10,000 times more than I do about everything in this world that we're in right now."
Yeah.
But then I have this skill set that he's heavily interested in, that I in theory know 10,000 times more or whatever, that I can provide for him. So it's awesome. It's really working. I just did it because I knew I had to be in shape for wrestling. So why not be a personal trainer? That should help, blah, blah. It'll be flexible with my wrestling schedule. That sounds like a good deal, but I had no idea. Again, I would never spend a penny on anything, because everybody wants this service for whatever. So, ring gear or promo packages or whatever it is. So it's pretty awesome. Wow. But yes.
So the question is, do you accept payment in like chocolate gold coins?
Yeah, I guess.
That was a terrible joke.
That's not something that's part of the diet right now, but then I can use that to trade for something else. See, barter system.
Exactly.
Like I said.
So, like I said, if the zombie apocalypse and the economy collapses,
I'm solid.
You're good.
I would assume it'd be even more valuable to be in shape if there's a zombie apocalypse.
Exactly.
So yes.
And then other people will be like, be on my team because you can train us.
Yes.
And we'll be better ready. Like I said, it's kind of like you'll be the Daryl of the group.
I have never wished for the end of human civilization so much after you pointed that out. You're right. So hopefully the apocalypse comes for my sake.
For your sake, exactly.
Because if an apocalypse does happen, the first thing I'll probably do is, if it's in the evening, go to where you train.
Yes.
And be amongst a bunch of wrestlers.
Yes.
I'll be safe. And it's in a warehouse type of area.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it'll be the safest place.
Yeah.
And wrestling will still be a thing. This is something that came up last time, and it'll come up again probably. Doesn't matter how culture or technology or entertainment changes. Wrestling is always seems like it's just always going to be a thing. Zombie apocalypse. They don't show it on Walking Dead, but I'm sure somewhere there's like a ring and there's promoters and they're doing some wrestling. It exists, I'm sure.
No, not true. There was that one episode where like they caught Rick Grimes and then they threw him kind of in that junkyard pit where it's kind of like a gladiator thing. He fought the zombie with the armor.
And seasons before that, there was another bad guy who caught him, maybe or Daryl actually, and had him and his brother fighting zombies in an arena. Mm-hmm. Right, and everyone was cheering, and they were arguing the legitimacy of this. Like, why do we do this? We need to be surviving. And the main bad guy dude was like, well, this is entertainment. People need this right now. So see, there's always going to be a need for it, and it's always going to exist.
Sports entertainment, wrestling is forever.
I think so.
The economy, the government, maybe not. I don't know.
And again, like I said, I have a feeling this is going to come up. I'll just tie it in already. That's why the market is oversaturated, quote unquote, right now, because it's booming. You think the quote unquote fall of TV or cable would have negatively affected wrestling, but no. I mean, in this streaming era, there's 10,000 promotions that are all streaming, and there's so much opportunity for fans and for wrestlers such as myself. So again, I couldn't write up some weird science fiction-y future where wrestling is going to not exist, which is awesome for me.
Yeah. And speaking about surviving opportunities, how'd you survive in Mexico?
Yeah. So that's probably one of the most notable things that's happened in the last 6 months. I'm going to just start off and say I went in with an open mind, and I understand there are legitimate concerns for safety, and first worlders aren't always going to be super comfortable. But the part of West Texas that's the same way, right?
Yeah.
For me, it was awesome, and I know that just sounds like the right thing to say, the politically correct thing to say. But in the 3 weeks I was there, everybody was at least base level kind to me, if not very generous. Nobody tried to rob me. I did not feel super uncomfortable. And again, this just sounds like the right thing to say, but this is legitimately how it was. Not just the people who I knew, not just wrestlers. Everyone was really nice to me. I was told I wouldn't stand out too much in Mexico City because there's a lot of Europeaners or descendants of Europeaners there. That was a lie. I stood out like a sore thumb the entire time. From 2 miles away, you knew I was a foreigner. As soon as I try and speak Spanish, with the limited vocab I have, you knew I was a super foreigner. But everyone was still very kind and loving towards me. And from the wrestling perspective, I mean, if that was 10 times what I thought it was going to be. It is so awesome over there.
Yeah. Can you kind of break down into that? Like what exactly did you go into, like in terms of what promotion did you go into, and what was the training like in comparison to the training that you received over here on the States?
So again, you've got all the stereotypes and stigmas that you've got going into it, or any positive words you want to throw, just the ideas of what you think it's going to be like, right? The things you hear about lucha libre and luchadors. Some were very true, but a lot were surprised me. So I went to train with Pantera. So it's confusing for a couple people. We got a lot of Panteras in lucha history. So he called himself many times Pantera Plain, because he's not Pantera Azul or Pantera anything, but he's not Pantera Negro, even though he's a black costume and everything. But it is Pantera. He has not the record, but he's in like 3rd place for the most for any Mexican national, most tours in Japan or something like that, at like 81 or something.
Oh wow,
pretty incredible like that. So he goes back to about 82. I want to say maybe a little bit before that is when he started. So you got to dig a little deeper in the history of luchador and lucha libre to know everything there is to know about Pantera. But I had heard a lot of stuff, and when I heard there was an opportunity to go train with him, it was a big deal, right? I kind of hard to believe that was actually going to happen. So he's got a couple different places that he does it, but mostly in Mexico City. So went down at the beginning of October, and that was the only thing, quote unquote, guaranteed, right? Was that we were going to be training with him a couple of times a week, ideally. Didn't know how long, didn't know where, didn't know what I was going to get. But they were very, very generous to me. Like I said, I got to stay with him and his family. Got to have easily the tastiest food of my entire life, virtually every night. I mean, it was so, and before you ask, I lost 2 pounds. So I don't know if it's just a great diet for me, for my body, or I was just born secretly Mexican, and because I loved it and it worked great with me and I feel good. So, okay, sorry.
They say tacos are healthy.
Yeah, well,
tacos, I don't know.
Things are less processed there, maybe.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, everything was very just authentic, and even on the side, like these greasy little taco stands, right? But like the food was just so good and so. Right. And everything. And if you go to HEB and you look, and the blueberries you buy and all the vegetables is like from Mexico. Oh, well, so I was at the source. I think that's a big part of it too. So yeah, great diet, great time in the city, easy to get around for me. So training was a joy. It really was. So one of the stereotypes, and I'll just address it straight up, is that the rings are going to be lower quality. That's what I was told a lot of times. So or just boxing rings, which is different. Yeah. And it's different as a wrestler. I loved the rings themselves. That we were in a couple, and not all of them were 100% the greatest thing in the world. But if you watch that style of wrestling, lucha libre, you're gonna notice obviously a lot more fast paced. That's very true. That very, very fast paced. A lot more utilization of the ropes, even for the big guys, much bigger than myself, which gave me no more excuses. Right? Anything they asked me to do, I had to do, because I could be, well, I'm too big, which, believe it or not, in this country sometimes is the case. There's some stuff that I can say, hey, I'm a little bit bigger than that guy. Maybe I'll do more of the power stuff. Like, don't ask me to do a triple backflip off the top and then land on the second rope somehow, even though it's under the top. How's that physically possible? No, I'm not going to do it. There, no excuse. Got to do it. Because guys 100 pounds my heavier could do it. Right. So that is very true. That part of it, the faster pace, high flying. So the ropes are super tight and springy, and it's just awesome. Like it's when you do adjust to it, it's a whole different animal. And the fans just love that style so much. When you see 2 guys going at it, two great luchadors. It isn't two MMA dudes slugging it out or jockeying for position. It's two superheroes just going crazy. It is Black Panther and Captain America going at it, and it looks so awesome, right? So the style is very different. The way they do a lot of the same stuff is different, if that makes sense. So you almost want to be very complimentary to it right now and say you have to be even more well-rounded. The very technical chain wrestling you'll see a lot of times is just so fast-paced and so crazy, and it's just so intricate, the holds that they get into.
Don't they also lead in with the left, as opposed to in America you lock up on the right?
Well,
is that correct?
So again, this is actually what I was getting at earlier when I said you hear certain things and you're like, well, you expect that to be true when you get over there. I was explaining to someone the other day, here's my analogy. In this country, everybody speaks English, right? That's the goal. That's what people, to get around and communicate easily, right? Even though it's not the official language, it just makes the most sense. Well, you go to another country, almost any other country in the world, they speak their language and English, right? Now, because of the, I guess, economic prevalence of all the English-speaking countries in the world over the last 100 years, almost everyone has that because it makes sense. Whether tourists come to your country or you want to go to the UK or US, so many people in the world learn English.
Yeah.
That analogy works for wrestling. So in Lucha Libre, they have to know everything. They don't get that excuse of only knowing how to, favor your right side like we do here or something, right? They have to be able to do everything. So just locking up was very difficult for me at the beginning because I was not used to the other guy. Like he's gonna go based off wherever my weakness is or whatever I'm not expecting versus just kind of fitting in there with the, you know what I mean? Because again, in American culture and society, let's take the extreme of 100 years ago, the classic, like, I guess like the Fighting Irishman or whatever, where you walk around and you've got your hands up and you don't use your legs for anything. You're just going to see who's the more manly man who can punch harder. And that's it. Well, a lot of other cultures, it's you use your whole body. Now you see that in modern MMA, right? You use your whole body to do everything. So that's how another way I would explain it in Lucha Libre is just everything. You utilize that. If you can trap the guy's fingers underneath your armpit and you know how to use your body right, you can fling them across the ring and stuff like that, right? So it's not just you utilize every part of your head a lot more. There's a lot more flying headbutts and stuff, and like it's crazy. I mean, they just elbow and the knee and the heel, and they just utilize every part of the body and do all these crazy things you didn't necessarily think were possible, at least in this where I broke into wrestling in American wrestling. Even here in Texas. Again, that's the other thing. You think there's so much lucha here, right? We're so close geographically to Mexico. Yes and no. It's still very, very different. It's still very, very different. I assume as soon as you cross the border, but certainly when you get all the way down into Mexico City. So the style, the pace, the techniques themselves, and then the fans, and then I could go on to that for an hour, just how different the fans are too.
And the stories over there, they have rudos and técnicos.
Yes,
and usually the foreign people, they put them as usually as a rudo. I don't know where they placed you.
I'm the jerk that's coming into this country, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No, absolutely. I think that's far more common for sure. At the same time, I'm gonna whip out another analogy here. In this country, in this city in particular, whenever I do try and speak Spanish to someone who's more comfortable with Spanish or only speaks Spanish, whether it's at my gym or whatever, generally, if I'm really trying and I'm being authentic, even if it's bad, I think it means a lot to them, right?
Yeah.
And that would make sense. And I feel the same way when someone speaks, especially when I was over in Mexico and someone tried English. I was so happy. Not because, I need you to speak English, but thank you for trying. That means a lot. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So it's the same thing there. I embraced the heck out of the culture. Gladly, happily. I mean, just from the food right away, right, and the people. Yeah. So, no, I was perceived as a technico the entirety of the time, and I'm very proud of that because, again, it was here is this dude who doesn't look like us and is not from this country, and does certainly fit the stereotype of someone who maybe wouldn't like Mexico or Mexicans. And I hope everyone I ever met there felt that I destroyed that stigma because I loved it and I embraced it. So
that's amazing, yeah. Because like I said, again, when you go over there, you just place those rules. Because I'm assuming because everyone says it's easier. I don't know why they always give that to the foreigners or for what reason, or because they assume
you're the away team.
They get the heat right away because you're not from there. Yeah. But that's also something that got you as a technical or a baby face.
Yeah, because I like I said, I think hopefully I just in the way I carried myself, it dispelled that if anyone there thought that everyone in America felt condescending or something towards Mexicans. That's not, maybe it's because I grew up in Texas, but it's not how I feel. So I loved everything about it, and I think they could see that. And again, you are a commodity when you look that different, which again, I don't get to experience too often here. I'm a pretty average looking guy, and I'm not 6'8" and 300, right?
Yeah.
But there, while I'm still not necessarily towering over all the guys, may have been a little taller on average compared to them than I would have been here, but the coolest part was just, again, looking different. You're automatically a commodity because you just visually, you obviously had to travel or be brought in or something. And this sounds almost a little bit arrogant, but again, just regardless of who I actually am or what I can do, I looked like the promoter must have really spent more on me just to bring me in or something, I think. So the fans thought it was a bigger deal.
Yeah, because on Instagram, I think I saw that you, on one of your posts, that you were a super estelar.
Yeah, I know.
Which is rare for you to get that like right away.
That's like top billing.
Yeah. So we did the second show we did there was in Pachuca, which it was about an hour and 20 outside of Mexico City. We took a bus. Beautiful. I mean, she's like that. Wow. I think Mexico City is beautiful for a different way because it's this giant concrete jungle. So we went out there and it was not a giant concrete jungle. Yeah. It was rolling hills and green trees and very colorful houses and stuff. And so beautiful city, but just as rare as maybe Americans coming to Mexico City might have been. Now it's 10 times rarer now that we've gone an hour outside of that city where they hadn't seen any in a long, long time, I think. So again, we were quote unquote superstars just by the rarity there, which is awesome. It's cheat codes and I'll take it. Like that's cheating. It was a big deal. I was there before they even knew what I could do, which is kind of cool.
I think like I think it's really interesting that when you mentioned that you were kind of automatically billed as a technical, you were a baby face over there, and it may have something to do with your appearance or the fact of how you carried yourself. It almost parallels to what Chris Jericho experienced in the early 90s when he was brought into AAA. Yeah, because a lot of times Americans, when they go to Lucha Libre promotions, they're going to be like, you're probably going to be a bad guy. The Briscoes from Ring of Honor, bad guys. Brian Cage, bad guy. Yep. But I remember when Chris Jericho said, like, when I came in, I expected for it to go one way, and they're like, no, you're good looking. You have beautiful blonde hair. You're going to be a star. You're going to be a good guy.
Well, that's me. Beautiful blonde hair.
Beautiful blonde hair. You don't have the blonde hair yet, but you are a strapping lad. You look like a star. Which I'm sure would be much different if it was a guy coming from America who's like 300 pounds.
Yeah.
And is looks like, Vader.
Yeah, of course.
Then they'll be like, okay, this guy has to be a heel. Yeah. Like, he just has to.
Well, because then a guy that size is going to clash with the style more in a good way, right? I mean, so he's
styles make matches.
Unaccepting of this lucha libre crap. I'm just going to beat up all these luchadors or whatever like that. And to me, especially on this trip, man, I was like I said, I was embracing the heck out of the style and the culture and everything. So I think that came across because you are just supposed to be yourself turned up to 11 or whatever. Well, my genuine self was this kid who's super excited to be there and do all this cool lucha stuff. And so that was, maybe that got turned up to 11 and they felt that as soon as I walked in. Because again, I also pride myself, Arsenal, here's where the name comes from again, being able to do everything, right? I may not be the best at everything, but if I'm not really good at something in regards to wrestling, then that's my new goal is now to work on that particular thing until I am. So lucha was the theme for October. I'm going to get really good at it, or as good as I can get, right? So I embraced the heck out of it, and you could see that as soon as I started in the matches. I don't mean this in an arrogant way at all, but it was like a Mortal Kombat game with the different tiers of bosses you have to beat. When I got there, the newest guy, I won't call him worse because, right, if it's your first day, it's not that you're bad, it's that you're brand new. The newest guy there could do more lucha stuff than I could, obviously. But I eventually passed him up, and then the next guy and the next guy. And if I'd been there for longer, I could be the new boss. You know what I mean? Like so that was my goal, was to get better than these guys in a friendly, competitive way, get better at them at their own thing. And most of them, I didn't have a chance because they're so amazing. But some of them, I was able to do that. So I learned a whole heck of a lot. And again, just in general, the combination of embracing it and then just being this foreigner and having that built-in commodity, a lot of people said a lot of nice stuff about bringing us back. So I would love to go back soon, and I think I will.
Oh, well, that sounds amazing.
Yeah. And then I guess to finish up on that, and I go on about it forever, but nothing else was guaranteed, right? So already the shows I told you about weren't necessarily guaranteed. They just kind of came up, and we did well enough at the first one to get an opportunity in the second one, the third one, and kind of spread because every promotion seemed like they had 3 more promoters in the audience.
So it was like a video game. You were just leveling up,
right? That's how I felt.
Next
I was
level,
more experience, right?
Yeah,
yeah. So the ultimate level, we skipped a few levels. I don't know if we typed in a cheat code or what.
Yeah.
But we got the call about halfway through the time there that Ultimo Guerrero was accepting of the chance of bringing us in with his main roster for a workout to look at us. And that was, as I'm saying, I still kind of in disbelief, right? Because that is an extremely good luck. I'm very confident in what I can do and what I did, but let's be honest, that was a lot of very, very good luck. And I'm very happy that opportunity just sort of happened to, if I had to try and explain it, but big part of it is because not enough Americans maybe are going down there right now. So there are great opportunities like that are just waiting to be seized. And I did it. I'm really proud of that. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it brought us in. And so if you guys have ever heard of Arena Mexico, that is that is the Mecca right there. That's pretty much the oldest place on earth where wrestling has been consistently going, and the oldest promotion, and just the history there and the reliability of the fans. I mean, everyone in that audience. We went to a show one of the first nights there. Everyone in that audience, not everyone, but the vast majority, I'm sure their great grandparents were watching in the 30s or whatever, right? So that's just.
I know mine were.
Yeah, right? They're in that arena, so it's part of that culture, and you could feel it. It sounds cheesy, but it was a different vibe.
I remember when I went to Juarez to watch wrestling. A long time ago, I would see an old lady throwing chairs at the heels. So everybody goes to wrestling.
Yeah. I heard about some other things too that might get thrown at me. So that's why I was such a nice guy while I was over there. I didn't want to get any particular liquids thrown at me or anything. So
no, absolutely. But I mean, the fact that you were in that arena, and you could just feel that sense of history and just lineage, just kind of pouring out from that arena. It's kind of like me in America being in Madison Square Garden. You realize that so much has happened here.
And you wonder if no one ever told you that, if you'd still pick up on it, and you feel like you would, because you can just see it on the walls and you can just feel it in the fans that are there and that do know what's happened there, right? Mm-hmm. And it was incredible. So the show, watching it as a fan was really, really awesome. But again, that time we went in for the workout, other than the luchadors in the ring, it's an empty arena, and you still get that vibe. You still get that feeling.
Wow.
It's just so cool. And maybe that was just left over from already having seen it packed full of fans or whatnot. But that was pretty awesome. And then again, the workout itself was surreal. I felt like we skipped a few steps. And in life, sometimes when that happens, I think it's terrifying, and you go, I shouldn't be here. And I've learned quickly that that's extremely counterproductive. So even if part of you tells yourself that, the other part of you is going to be like, no, I deserve to be here, or I'm going to do whatever I need to deserve to be here. So we did. We went in there and we did a full workout with the luchador guys. And again, part of me was thinking, okay, this got to be like some kind of class that like there's levels, and this is one of the lower. And like, nope, these are the dudes that we saw the previous show in the ring in front of thousands of fans. This is the roster. I mean,
like these are the guys that are drawing the name. These are the drawing names.
These are essentially the top luchadors in the world that are on my left and my right. And
wow, was there anybody notable that was at the workout with you that you were working out with, or that you are allowed to mention?
I don't know, because there's too many to tell you who normally wears a mask and who doesn't. And
gotcha.
Like that. And some of them were, and so because again, that's part of the culture. So some of them are in full lucha gear in the parking garage, walking around like on a Wednesday when there's no show that night. Just that's how committed they are to it. But a couple of others, I think, were more lax on it. So I don't know who I saw and who I didn't. Yeah. But they were definitely, like I said, there were guys I knew from who I'd already heard of before I was there, but then the rest of them I had seen that previous Friday when we went to the show. And again, just the ability to, as far as how it went, I'll just say this, we fit in pretty well. We were told to come back. So
you were exposed to different things. And last time you were here, you hadn't had an intergender match. So I don't know if you had one in Mexico, or maybe exposed to exoticos and all that different stuff going on in Mexico.
Funny. Okay. So yeah, definitely more prevalent there for sure in that culture and that style. No, in the time I was there, and the time we were there this time around, I was not involved in any of that. But funny enough, where was it? I was here April with you guys. Yeah, I have since had 2 or 3 intergender tag matches in a promotion, CTLL, in Houston.
Okay.
So my trainer, Rudy Boy Gonzalez, hooked this up. I think maybe I'm giving too much credit, as like a warm up to Mexico, because the chances, this opportunity was building for a long time, right? So there, it's purely lucha. Just the culture in that part of Houston, it was like being in Mexico, right? It's a completely, the way I describe San Antonio to people who haven't been here, it's more Tex-Mex. It's very blended in, right? But in Houston, it was a little more separate. Like you got Little Tokyo or whatever, right? That's the same feel for the Mexican part of Houston. So even like signs and restaurants and stuff is all in Spanish. And so the entire audience is purely speaking Spanish. That's what I'm the only guy in the building that speaks English and not fluent Spanish. And there's all these luchadors there, guys from Mexico, guys go back and forth. So that was great to sort of work my way up. And I had a couple intergender matches there. And it's just like everything else. It's a different style, but you get used to it pretty quickly. And to dispel again with any stereotypes, I won't name who, but one girl who I wrestled really did beat me up. I honestly probably worse than any guy I've wrestled. So, and I don't think I really scratched her much. So, she was tough, and it was awesome. I think fans really liked that. That was one of my favorite matches in a long, long time. That got me sort of built up my confidence. So when I went to Mexico, the biggest thing was the language barrier, right? Because you look at it and you almost think it must be impossible. I mean, how can you wrestle someone who you can't even communicate with, or if you can't even communicate with the promoter? There were shows we did where there was no one with any English, and why would they even try? It's their country, that they speak a different language. I don't blame them for it. It's not like, I mean, there's this feeling like when you are buying something from someone, maybe like, well, you should try and communicate with me if you want my money or something like that. Well, if you feel that in this country or that country or whatever, that's completely gone in this scenario, because they've brought me in to do a job for them to do,
Absolutely.
And there's no one who owes me any of that. So I'm going to do my best with the little vocab I have to understand what's going on and be told who I'm going to wrestle. I don't even know. It's so chaotic and scary, but again, you adapt, you learn how to feel everything out, you learn how to communicate, obviously. And then nothing bad ever happened. Everything ended up working out just fine. And I'm way more prepared now probably to work with a guy from Japan, just because, again, I know how to wrestle a guy I can't talk to much better, right?
Yeah. And a lot of times, a lot of it is nonverbals, or just ways that I'm sure that when you're in the ring and engaging them, you may not even speak the same language, but there's certain ways that you can communicate where you're like, okay, I know what he's going to try.
And the same applies to the fans. And I had to figure that out a little bit, especially as a technical. I'm not going to be yelling English stuff at the fans to try and get them into the match or into me, right? I mean, there's probably a way to do that it would work, but for the most part, that's a way to get booed.
You did learn some Spanish, because the other day we were watching your match, and somebody was yelling some Spanish to you, and then you understood it. And I think you grasp a lot of that when you were.
That's the thing. That's when people say, if you go live there anywhere, right, any country, you're going to learn that language so much faster. Yes, I studied every day 20 or 30 minutes for at least. I got super consistent the last 2 months, and I learned very, very, very little. Then when I got there, per day, I learned about as much as I had learned in the last 2 months, right? Because you have to. So no, I could figure out. And again, nonverbal communication, even if they're speaking, so it's verbal, but you don't have to understand what they're saying necessarily word for word to then understand whether they like you or not, or whether they want you to do something again or not do something again, or they want you to screw off and go back to Texas or whatever. Like, it's pretty easy to figure out after a while. Again, that was great. Like, the very first show was such a good confidence builder. As soon as me and the other American guy got in, it was a tag match. We got tagged in against each other. It was like an explosion. We joked, this is a joke. We joked, it's purely a joke, that it was like Rock and Hogan because that was that, like, we just paused and just looked. It was 350 people just screaming, and we hadn't touched. I mean, totally undeserved, but again, we just looked so different, right? So again, now we learned how to engage the audience, and we did a couple of goofy things that, may not have worked as well here, and it just went over super great there, and they just loved it.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you touched on the fact that, like, there's certain things that work for a lucha audience versus it works in an American audience. What is something that you noticed that works a lot better there in the time you were there versus if you pulled it here, it may not quite go over the same?
Yeah. I think we live in a more globalized society, and the same goes for wrestling. So they may be what works somewhere may be starting to get closer and closer together now. And that's good. It makes it easier, I guess, for me. But biggest thing, there's a couple. Biggest one was probably just comedic stuff. They really, really liked really funny stuff, for sure. Which is something that for the most part I feel like is also in my arsenal. Comes somewhat naturally. So they really liked a lot of that. it sounds funny to say engaging them, because of course you in an American audience want to be engaged too. They don't want to be ignored.
Absolutely.
But they almost like, I feel like if you just engaged the audience for a long time, you could get boos here or chants of like, hey, we're here to see wrestling, like what's going on. And there, man, again, even that first one, I felt like we could have done 20 minutes without touching, because they were just wanted me to do some goofy little dance, or they wanted him to get all mad at them and tell him to shut up, and they just loved it. They were eating every little bit of that.
Superheroes and villains you mentioned earlier.
Yes, exactly, right. So that engagement in the kids, especially, and that's most universal, and that's kind of speaks to just human psychology. The kids react the same anywhere else in the world, right? But there is just more of them and more passionate, I guess, or something. But yeah, engaging them, and then speed and just really impressive stuff. Again, superheroes going at it. That's what they really wanted to see. I think if you see two guys lock up and get into one basic hold and hold it for a while, I'm not saying American audiences explode over that either, but if done right, that's something that does work here, and it just wasn't something they would be interested in there. I mean, they want to see a bajillion different holds and exchanges back and forth and a bunch of cool arm drags and all that cool stuff. And so again, it took some time to adapt, and we started to get there, at least by the time we left. Faster pace, more characterization, more animated. That was what people kept saying to me, even when they didn't speak. They kept saying animals. A couple of guys, animals. I'm like, you want me to be an animal? And then I mean, I could do it, I guess, whatever you want. But no, they were saying be more animated. I was like, okay, cool. Yeah. I can do that. I can do animated for sure. So they want to see from, it sounds like this obviously applies to American too, but the guy in the 20th row up there wants to be able to see your feet moving, as you go for that arm drag. I want to see this big, colorful, almost cartoonish movement, and see your whole body engaged in it, right? Absolutely. It's not cool to just push the guy with your upper body and just sit there like a stone who hasn't moved. It's because it's not about bodybuilders. It's about superheroes flying at each other and doing all this crazy stuff. So just more animated. That's probably the best way to encapsulate all of it, for sure.
Yeah, I could see that, because I remember my parents, they're really old school, and when they would go wrestle, they would feel American wrestling was really bland. Mm-hmm. And they just, like you said, it just confirmation that they do want that animation. They want that over the top stuff, like that pageantry and everything. It attracts them over there in Mexico. I don't know what it is.
I mean, right off the bat, if I had to guess, in something about this culture, maybe here in the US, we like the idea more of two macho guys in a bar fight, but in the ring still, and that's really cool to us. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if they're more exposed to that type of thing, and it's bland, don't care about it, but they don't want to see that. They want to see two superheroes going at it that are superhuman and doing superhuman stuff. So they want to see more speed and more flying and all this crazy stuff.
I will say that, like, because of globalization, and I'm glad you've thrown that word a couple of times so far, is because of that, I feel like certain things maybe did not get over back then that they do now.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, I always attribute it to the mid 90s, when that was the first time that the United States got exposed on a national level to the luchadors and to the Japanese wrestlers that were a lot more animated and cartoony and stuff like that. Because prior to that, I mean, I grew up with Mexican wrestling, in my household, but I never saw it on such a big level in America until like watching ECW and WCW in 95, 96, 97. And I'm like, whoa. Like these guys are doing things that Hulk Hogan and Sting cannot do.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, they had different reasons why they were valuable. The culture was looking at the time more for big, extremely muscular, buff dudes, going at it like a bar fight or something like that. Whereas, and then you bring in this lucha culture, and the Japanese similar to, way quicker, way more animated, way more superhuman, and arguably a lot more variety as well too. So I mean, that was the thing, was every match was just, take something, my favorite example, arm drag. There are commonly there are 3 or 4 maybe arm drags that at our wrestling school right now that I learned initially, and then I teach a lot of the new guys and stuff like that. Well, over there on day 1 we did like 7 at least. So by day 18 we had done 30, and that's not an exaggeration, easily 30 different types of arm drags, right? So there's a lot of variety. You can imagine how.
Wow, I'm racking my brain right now. It's like, how many have I seen on TV?
You count them next time, and I'm not talking about like every single slight variation counts as a new one. Like, it's got to be a whole different thing for it to count. There's got to be 30 that we went over, Did I master them all? No, not quite. But a couple of them, yes.
That could be a drinking game.
Yeah.
Like every time you see a variation of an arm drag, take a shot. You might get arm poison. You might get alcohol poisoning if you're watching like Triple A.
Yes, yes, most likely, absolutely.
But all this stuff, all this stuff, and I think you had a match with Rudy Boy, your trainer.
Yes.
And all this stuff got you prepared for your match you had recently with Chase Owens.
Yes. So a lot of big matches in the States recently. To catch y'all up from April, in August was the Master versus the Apprentice, Rudy Boy Gonzalez, and that was for one of the Lucha promotions in Houston, actually, which is again this great practice for me, if you will. It's hard to call that practice or a warm up or something when it was against Rudy Boy Gonzalez. So it was kind of everything before that was a warm up for that. It was let's just say this, it was the loudest. Man, almost including Mexico, it may have been the loudest and consistently loudest an audience has been for me in a match. And that may not be a credit to me, maybe perhaps the other guy involved in that match and his expertise and all his experience. So that was pretty incredible to see the things that he did that just engaged the audience through the roof like I hadn't seen from anybody. And he'll be the first one to say that he's quote unquote old school and call himself an old vet or whatever. And the reason he'll be the one to say it is because his philosophy is, well, if you just do this and this and this is what has always worked. And if you know how to do it right, this is gonna work for you. You don't need to do the triple backflip through the table on fire. In fact, that probably isn't gonna work. So don't do it. Yeah. And it was incredible to see just the little simple things he did that worked really, really well. And so it's gonna sound cheesy and kind of hard to believe because he's been my coach for 2 years now. But I learned a ton just in that match. Wow. It was an expedited process of learning right there for sure. So that built up a lot of confidence to have made it through that as well and not done a bad job. I won't even say I did a great job, but let's just say that was nerve wracking because the expectations I put on myself. Like this is probably my number one person I've faced so far that I want to be able to live up to and not let down. Right. I really enjoyed it. I was proud of my own, everything I did. And then at the end of August, getting ready for Mexico, then Aiden Cristiano, I had him at Galactic Pro Wrestling from ROW. That was a really, really big deal for me. Another person I'm going to say I learned a ton from. It's incredible how much you can learn in 10, 15 minutes of wrestling with someone. But absolutely, more than you would from a couple hours reading a book or even a couple hours in the gym training with that person. But
on the job training, basically.
Yes. And that was awesome. If I could brag for a second about having moved here 4 years ago, and I guess now truly having to, I got to call this my hometown over Austin where I grew up. I like to think they're tied, but man, that show at Galactic Pro in August, we had over half the audience was arsonists wearing Arsenal shirts, which is a big deal because it was a big crowd. It wasn't 20 people. It was a huge crowd. And over half of them. I mean, I talked to the ticket lady and she told me how many total bought tickets. Then I counted how many friends and people who knew, my friends who came and were wearing my shirts and and it was so awesome. I mean, it was so great to have that kind of reaction. So then I could have picked my nose and it would have been an amazing match according to these people. Right. But we ended up having a really good match too. And then you said something about getting sick earlier, September, got strep throat. So that was a big moment in my career.
Oh, it's the worst.
It was the worst. It was terrible. It went through the whole community at the gym. With wrestlers, a lot of wrestlers got it. I didn't kiss any wrestlers, so I don't know how it spread. Don't blame me.
Were you forced to lick the mat?
No, I wasn't. And I didn't do it at all. So I'm not sure. But so it was an emotional roller coaster because then I had to put a pause on training, had to put a pause on my shows. I had to miss my first date ever. My first wrestling show ever because of that. And it was a really big bummer, but it was during the Mecca. The peak sickness was on that day and there was just no way I could have moved. Right. So that was a huge bummer and kind of demoralizing. But, dusted myself off, got ready for Mexico, we covered virtually everything that happened in Mexico. That was awesome. Came back. People don't get me wrong. I'm very proud of what we did. But again, now it's projected like it's this huge, huge deal, which is awesome that it's perceived like, the bookings and offerings I've got since I got back are through the roof now because I added to my resume. I mean, that's a huge thing to my resume that I've been to Mexico and done all this lucha stuff. So people want to see that. So as soon as I get back, literally the day after I settled back in, I go back to the well for another Galactic Pro and here's Chase Owens. which was a huge opportunity for me. Again, felt like cheat codes. I skipped a couple levels to get there. I mean, that's just, but I mean, the opportunity's there. I'm going to take it. Right. And again, it sound like a broken record. I learned a ton from wrestling him, and it was my first official main event of a big show. For sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in the semi a couple of times, but that was my first main event, which is I'm really proud of. It's a really big deal for me. Yeah. But of course, it's Chase Owens, so why wouldn't it have been the main event? That would have been weird if it wasn't. And it was one of the longer one-on-one matches I think I've ever had. I have not seen the time on it, but I have not been so beat up and tired from a one-on-one match in a long time like that.
It was an amazing match.
I mean, we were there live. For the record, for those who are listening, we were there live, and just from watching it. Honestly, this is not me buttering you up. This is me being honest. Had that ring been in Korakuen Hall, it was as if I was watching you on New Japan World. Because I felt that it's like, okay, there's Chase Owens. We know him as a member of the Bullet Club, big heel over there. And just how you were able to engage him was like, man, he's keeping up exactly like I pretty much feel like he's in Korakuen. He could be in Korakuen Hall and he would not be missing a beat. Thank you, man. I genuinely felt that.
That means the world to me. Absolutely. Because this was just another great chance to screw up an awesome opportunity. And I'm proud to say I don't believe I did so.
And from what I could tell, you can definitely tell that Chase Owens is very much versed in the Japanese stiff style of wrestling. Like he hits hard.
Yes. I have been moving a little slower the last couple of days. Let's say at training, I've been teaching the other guys stuff, not doing anything myself these last couple of days. I've been stiff and beat up, but I wouldn't have it any other way because, like I said, it's the longest one-on-one I had in a while. Maybe I'm not entirely sure if it's officially a record. The most stuff I've had done to me and done to someone else, back and forth. First main event. First time in a very long time. There was a chair involved. Don't know if y'all missed that part.
I saw that part. Oh yeah.
There may have been a Canadian destroyer in there, and there may have been a Styles Clash from the second rope, which didn't feel great.
I was scared for you when I saw that. I was like,
hey, it should have been.
I was like, oh, good. Anytime I see that move, I get scared for anybody.
Yeah, and from the second rope, I didn't know that was a thing until it happened to me. Now I know it's a thing.
Yeah, because I mean, Chase Owens does do it on occasion. I think every member of the Bullet Club, it's kind of like their tribute / desperation move in the middle of the match. Like, okay, they're getting their ass kicked. They need to pull off a big move. They'll either do that or they always do like their small moves to pay tribute to past members of the Bullet Club. And when I saw that, I was like, oh no. I was just like, don't.
Yeah, that's how I felt.
Yeah.
Oh no, don't. But it happened. In that whole match, like I said, I just learned so much, and I just having that crowd there again, hometown advantage. Again, it's cheat codes, right?
Yeah.
These people who know me, it's close to where I work and live, and that just. I see that as a projection or a trial run. I would love one day for anyone who wants to criticize me and say, well, that's again, those people from outside wrestling. Absolutely valid criticism. Totally cool. Got it. But again, the goal would one day be to have half of a crowd or whatever be people who just started strictly there as wrestling fans who like my wrestling or like me as a wrestler. And it's going to be different. Every crowd deserves your best. Don't get me wrong. But regardless of the reasons why, when there is this huge crowd that is just giving everything towards you, you have to bring out new stuff and bigger stuff. And that's what I did with Chase Owens. I was really happy to, I think, be able to deliver. And I will say it does maybe count for twice as many points when you really impress someone who is just there because they know you and doesn't like wrestling and then freaking loves it and asks, hey, when's the next show, blah, blah, blah. And you can literally tell them about a show you're not on and they're going to go anyway because now you've converted them. Now they're a wrestling
You
fan.
converted a fan.
That's a pretty big deal too. So I'm really happy about that. I've converted a lot of fans lately. So
that's awesome. Like I said, it's just when you're able to convey that feeling or somebody who's, because like I said, anybody like you and like me and, in Juicy J, we're obvious have been fans since we were children.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So we know the name of the game. It's a matter of, suspending your belief and just kind of getting lost in the story. But for someone who's an outsider, they think, oh, that's so hokey. And then they get into it. That says something to the amount of psychology and how you're able to draw them in. And for a while, they forget that
if done right. Yes.
Yeah, if done right, they forget like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't real. Well, I mean, it's not real. Like you're watching an MMA fight where two guys are destroying each other with arm bars or anything like that.
But you know, if I do my job right, is your heart rate actually elevated? Is that sweat real? I mean,
Yeah.
are you jumping out of your seat involuntarily?
Are you screaming?
Yes. And there was I've seen at least some clips that people took, and there was a lot of people jumping up and down, and not all of them were kids, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
And really getting into it. I mean, you know, when Rick is about to die in Walking Dead, and the walker or whatever is about to bite him, like I stand up off my couch and go, oh geez, oh no.
It's like,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I know Andrew Lincoln is probably going to be okay. Right. So again, with this conversation's happened a million times, but if done right, those emotions are real. And it should be relatable to real things to you, right? And I think when you can do that to someone who's not a fan, again, it's just so cool because then they become a fan. They understand why. And it's so hard to do that when you're just sitting there watching TV and you're trying to bring a new fan. You guys know this. And then like, look at this. And it could be the best wrestling in the world and the best story you as a wrestling fan's ever seen. It's just so hard to bring them in. But that's where independent shows come in. That when it's a good show and it's done right, and you can bring the most cynical person in and they're just going to love it.
No, absolutely.
I mean, you want to talk full circle. My dad used to be pretty critical of me watching WWE all the time growing up. Well, you know, just not that I couldn't do it, but critical as in just, you know, making fun of it all the time, thinking it was pretty goofy and pretty hokey and stuff. And I talked about it last time a little bit, but man, if you want to talk full circle, I know he's my dad, so obviously he's pretty concerned when I'm hanging upside down about to get Styles Clash from the second rope regardless. But I mean, he was drenched in sweat. He was screaming. He was running around. He was so angry when the chair came out and the low blow and everything. And that like emotion coming from Mr. You know, doesn't like wrestling at all. Maybe 10 years ago when I was just watching on TV like that was huge for me. Absolutely.
That must have been amazing. Absolutely.
Because it's a whole nother level of, oh, it's just my dad who's there and is proud of me or whatever. But like now there's an entirely separate element of, oh, there's this huge wrestling cynic who's now super into it. And that's such a satisfying feeling, for sure.
That is so awesome. You are really honing into your craft, and you have a lot of arsenal now.
Yes, sir.
A lot of arsenal.
You owe me $8 every time you say
that. Yeah. And but to get better in your craft, you do have to get training, and which you do have to do. Or today, actually, you have to get going. Mm-hmm. So it's sad to cut this off. Maybe you're gonna have to come visit us again, so you can keep telling us more. And but where can they find you? Anything you want to?
I can knock it out real quick. First of all, I'm a bit of a dinosaur. Still don't have the Twitter, but we got the Facebook and we got the Instagram. So Facebook's Alex Arsenal and Instagram is Alex_Arsenal, and there's 2 X's on that Alex. And if you go to either one of those 2, you should be pretty well up to date on any future stuff I've got coming up. Again, you can find all the specifics for time, date, location there. I'm just gonna bring back what I said earlier. The bookings have kind of exploded. I've got a lot coming up. If anyone out there is interested at all, just in San Antonio, we've got November Pain coming up just this Saturday, November 2nd for TWE. So that's my home promotion. I'm really excited to be back. I'm back in the States and back with them. And that's gonna be at the Limitless Sports Academy. And I could just go down the list. We've got another show coming up. Then on Sunday, the 10th, so that's just 8 days later. And then we're going to be back in San Antonio on November 22nd again with TWE. And then 2 more shows I did want to talk about. They're kind of far off. We've got one for Galactic Pro coming up again on Black Friday, November 29th, I want to say, right, this year. It's actually a cancer benefit show for local comedian Larry Garza. And that is just, every time I've been there, these last 4 or 5 shows have been great at Galactic Pro. And now this one is going to be a charity benefit show, and I'm really excited about that. It's also going to be at the Well Guys Black Friday, so come on out for that. And then along the same vein, do keep up with me on my social media, because all the details aren't out yet. But we do have something really special coming up here in the city in early December, actually putting together a show, a couple of guys, and they've got me involved. With a couple different companies. It's another charity show. It's going to be for awareness and suicide prevention for our armed forces. So if you guys have ever heard anything like, for example, the saying that 22 per day is 22 too many, right?
Absolutely.
That is something that's near and dear, I think, to everybody's heart, certainly in this city, right? And especially to mine. So I'm really excited for that show. And again, they're ironing out all the details. I promise. I'm going to let everyone know on social media and everything, get all the details for that, where you guys can go. But that's going to be a really, really big one. And when you've got a cause like that, you've got a lot of big names coming out that want to help too. So the show itself is going to be great, purely from a wrestling standpoint. So I'm really excited about that. In the city here, early December. I'll get more details later, I promise.
Awesome. That sounds amazing. And like I said, we just want to thank you so much for coming by. You have to come back again, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. And like I said, just from a fan standpoint, I could see the progress just within 6 months of seeing you wrestle then versus now. You're now bulletproof.
Yes.
Which I think sounds way better.
Thank you.
It's like, wow, okay, that works.
Yeah.
That absolutely works.
Especially against Bullet Club on Sunday. Bulletproof Bullet Club. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
A lot of bullets going around.
Absolutely. Like I said, I just have to commend you on that match that you had with Chase Owens, because it could have very well have been in Korakuen Hall and it wouldn't have lost a step at all.
So one day it will be, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why if you're on New Japan World or something else, I'm like, we had him on our show.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We were the first people. Remember that.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I said last time. Don't forget that, guys. That's huge.
That is absolutely huge. Exactly. We have our live studio audience here, cheering on and whatnot. But no, just like I said, thank you so much for coming in. And like I said, if there's any last bit of words you have for, the Tiger Driver Army, please feel free to share.
Man, okay. If you want something cheesy and philosophical that I have learned recently, again, going back to Mexico and all the other opportunities I talked about, I don't want to try and teach anyone else any life lessons. Like, I've been everywhere and done everything. But the thing that I did learn was when you're presented with something that's really scary, but it's a good opportunity, don't talk yourself out of it. Talk yourself into it and trust, not just in your specific abilities, but your general ability to adapt and figure out things. Because that's what happened to me in Mexico. I greatly expanded my horizons, not just in wrestling, but as a person. And the thing I'm most proud of is honestly not the matches or the tryout with Ultimo Guerrero or the match with Chase Owens. The biggest thing recently in my life that I'm proud of is like overcoming that fear. And I will say one thing that ties the two together real quick. I watched every Chase Owens match that's ever existed to get ready, right? Because I was going to beat that guy, right?
Yeah.
One of his promos after a match was great, and I loved it. He said, something. I am the measuring stick in this industry, whether it is Japan, China, Mexico. I won't go there. I'm scared. And whatever else he said. And I went, I just came back from Mexico, and I'm not scared. I did it. Oh, my God, maybe I can beat him. So I was very, very proud of that, and I hope that I can continue that with other fields in my life and apply that to other things, and hopefully anyone listening can do the same thing. I mean, just go out there and take that chance and make the mistakes, but learn from it and get better and add to your arsenal. All right.
There you go.
Oh yeah.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. And that right there was Alex Arsenal. Can't thank you enough, man. What about you, Juicy J? You got anything else to add?
You could find Tiger Driver Radio on Facebook and Instagram on Tiger Driver Radio. Twitter, we're Tiger Driver Rad 1, or hit us up on our email, tigerdriverradio@gmail.com. That's all I got.
That's all you got, man. And like I said, as of next week, we will definitely be covering, of course, the Power Struggle Tour that New Japan Pro Wrestling has been going through.
Yeah.
We will also discuss, a myriad of other topics, including the whole Jordan Miles t-shirt controversy. Hopefully by then things will blow over a little bit, but I think it deserves a little bit of a conversation.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and see. And of course, like I said, if you have any other questions, gripes, complaints, please feel free to hit us up at all the aforementioned social media and email addresses. And on that note, this is your man, JP. And like I always say, enjoy pro wrestling. Until next week, kids.
Adios.